You're listening to Risky Behavior, where no subject is off limits. Sit back, tune in, and enjoy a beverage with us as we explore controversial issues and answer your health and wellness concerns, ranging from nutrition and exercise to sex and prescription drugs. I'm Dr. Shweta Chakraborty, a national media risk expert regularly on CNN, BBC, Fox News, and more. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Taylor Wallace, who's seen regularly on the Dr. Oz show. He's off this week though, so I'm flying solo. Together, we'll loosen lips and spill tea with special guests that you won't want to miss. Hi listeners, a quick note to mention this episode was recorded before the COVID lockdown. It may make you nostalgic of all things bars and socializing, but we'll be able to visit our favorite bars again in some capacity sooner than later. Remember that alcohol consumption, whether it's pre, during, or post-COVID, is a delicate balance between enjoyment and hazard. This episode and its insights ring true now as much as ever, so enjoy responsibly. So today, I'm really thrilled to introduce my two guests, but let's explain why we're having this conversation first. We're going to be talking about alcohol consumption and the risk that alcohol poses to intentional and unintentional injury. Given that this is a happy hour show, and given that we are recording this in a hotel where there's 3 unique bars, we thought it was prudent to have this conversation. We know there's a strong correlation between alcohol and injury. The more people drink, the greater there is risk of violence, road traffic incidents, and other causes. So for young people, most alcohol consumption happens in bars and clubs where there's a lot of crowding and poor lighting. So the two guests I have here today are Jackson Crowder.
Hello.
And Deke Dunne.
Hello.
Both of them are proud bartenders at Allegory here in Eaton Hotel, which was also named one of the top 15 bars in Washington, D.C. That's awesome, you guys.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it.
So let's get into this. We know now that consuming alcohol enhances risk to human health, yet you're both very good at what you do and you're proud of what you do. So how do you justify your craft given the risk associated with it?
Well, it's important for people to have an avenue to unwind. Alcohol, when used in moderation, can be stress release. It creates an environment for people to go and socialize. One of my favorite bartenders, always a guy named Souther Teague up in New York, he always says, people want to drink, they can just go home and buy a bottle on the way home and drink. But you don't go to a bar to drink, you go to a bar to socialize, to be in an environment with other people. It's energizing, it's therapeutic, and that's one of the reasons why people go to bars.
It's social ties, right?
Yeah, social ties, absolutely. It's a watering hole. People gather.
So the people are looking for that interaction, person-to-person interaction. Everybody lives so much of their lives on screens these days that that person-to-person interaction can be in short supply. Yeah. Sometimes we live in DC. It's a high-stress town, so stress is in great supply, and sometimes fun can be in somewhat lesser of a supply. So we really just do our best to provide a little bit of fun.
Yeah. So, okay, I was doing some research leading up to this conversation today, and I didn't even realize just how bad it was in some places, and it varies, right? But Washington, D.C. has been consistently coming in second in terms of if we're going to talk about D.C. as a state, it's the second state to Wisconsin for the most alcohol consumption. So what is unique, in your opinion, from your vantage point here in Allegory and as bartenders and managers of Allegory, that is causing that? Are we uniquely stressed out in this town, you think?
I think so. The stakes are higher.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Everyone has stakes in their jobs anywhere in the world. But, in D.C., people give a certain level of gravity to what they do. The level of importance for people is really high. I used to work in politics, so that stress is just extremely high. The expectations are high. Fear of failure is high. So I think people add a lot of the stress onto themselves, but also their jobs sometimes demand higher levels of work rate or whatever the case may be. So I see it, as a bartender, I see people, they come in and they're really pining for that cocktail. When they come in, they really are. Or that shot of beer. And do
you see, have you witnessed just kind of the stress? What you're doing is giving them a stress relief, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you almost see it kind of lifted off their shoulders?
100%. Sometimes people walk through the door and immediately it's like the weight of the world has been lifted off of their shoulders right away. Suddenly they're in an environment where They don't have to worry about their phone. They don't have to worry about what's going on in the office. It can just be them and the few other people they're with. And that's the only thing in the world that matters to them. And I think after a really, really long day of high stress work, that's really all you people want.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that. But then where does it cross the line? When does it get to too much, right? Yeah. Because there's something to be said for getting people drink or drinks, but then continuing to give people drinks who are already intoxicated. That's where that correlation becomes even more extreme from drunkenness as opposed to just like enjoying a cocktail, but from being drunk to getting physically injured in some way, right? So how do you draw the line? How do you know?
Well, I mean, we've both taken training on, spotting
what
signs
is that?
of inebriation.
Tell us that. I don't think that our listeners actually know what that's
you got to do tips training.
Yeah,
tips training is one of them.
To have a manager's license in DC, and really in every state, it's going to have its own equivalent of it. You have to pass tips training, which teaches you signs of intoxication, teaches you ways to mitigate those sorts of things from happening, teaches you proper interventional techniques, all those sorts of things. So if you're going to be a manager, you have to have that training. You have to have passed.
Yeah. Okay.
And also being aware, like,
we need to know to be able to like
slurred speech,
find loops in the system.
Slumping in chairs, changes in demeanor,
falling asleep at the bar.
Falling asleep at the bar is a pretty obvious one, It's like, but also like how they're interacting with people. Their voice is getting louder when they're telling stories. Like, are they getting more robust? Are they like, all these different little signs that you have to keep an eye out on? Because one thing you're doing is you're looking out for their health and well-being, but you're also looking out for the health and well-being of other patrons,
right?
Which is also a huge concern of ours. So we have to keep our eyes on our patrons and our guests. We have to be hawkish in a sense that we need to like always be actively watching how people are interacting, always be actively, trying to smell out any potential conflict. And also, keeping people healthy and safe, which is, vastly important because we're in the business of making people happy. We're not in the business of hurting people. So,
right.
Yeah. So, which I mean, there's a distinction though, for sure. There's a line there that you can cross,
And when people go out to your bar, they're looking for a good time. They want to have fun, but they have an expectation of safety. That is perfectly reasonable. And it is up to us as the people who are, running the operation, the people who are hosting the party, as it were, to make sure that they are safe, they are having a good time, and that no other outside forces are making them feel unsafe, making them feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, which is why it's so important to really monitor for those signs of intoxication or having been overserved.
So full disclosure is that I drink at your bar frequently.
Yeah.
And you've never seen any of these signs from me, right?
No.
No, you're very well behaved.
Not yet.
See, Mom? Anyway, but like, doesn't that mean that you have to have a breadth of skills here that's beyond just creating the fantastic cocktails that you do that got you into the top 15 bars of Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. How is training enough? Do you think that does it?
You have to care. You really do. Like in Allegory, we pride ourselves on giving such a like heightened bar experience from the moment you walk in, the moment you leave. We want you to be talking about our bar 15 years later when you're sitting around the table at Thanksgiving talking about that one cocktail you had at Allegory, that one time. Like that's the type of like experience we're trying to create for people. So with that being said, we have to truly legitimately care about their well-being for them to have a good experience. If our guests are stumbling out blackout and not remembering their experience, or they get hurt and remember us poorly, like obviously we just want people to have like the best experience, and leaving our bar in a harmful way doesn't do
it's
that.
Like lose-lose for everyone.
Yeah, it's lose-lose for everybody. Yeah, they could get hurt, then obviously we care about the person, but we also care about the reputation of our bar and like the experience people are having. So
it's so easy for bars to, even if a guest has been overserved, to keep serving because you keep selling, you keep making more money, all those sorts of things. Economically, that sort of irresponsibility can be in your favor, but I think that's also a very, very short-sighted approach. You're going to acquire a very, very negative reputation, and I think a lot of times your customers probably aren't going to want to come back if they're just waking up every day after going to your bar feeling horrible, or they have a very negative experience like that. So this sort of responsibility that we place a very heavy emphasis on in our bar, and all of our bartenders are operating on a very, very similar level. It's just a part of almost our curation, like Deke was saying, of a great experience.
So I find that remarkable that you share in the responsibility of the patron's experience. So it's not just on them. You're saying that you will take some sort of accountability in how they enjoy their night and then their memory of the evening.
Yeah,
because that's really what keeps them coming back.
Yeah, like if I see somebody even like gain, maybe a little red in the face and they have a little bit of slurred speech, but I don't think they're at that point where they need to like, be cut off. Maybe they have one more in them. I don't. If they ask for another drink, I don't make it high proof. Maybe I make it low proof, low ABV.
Bartenders did that, didn't they?
No, I mean, I'll be abruptly honest with people, and just be like, hey, instead of making that really high proof rum daiquiri, here's a sherry daiquiri. That's 20% alcohol as opposed to 69% alcohol.
Oh, that so explains last night. I knew I was drinking water by the end of it. Those were not vodka.
We are very transparent. We're not trying to swindle anybody. We will tell you when we're like proofing down your drink. But that's also like a growing trend in our industry where like a lot of us when we're not working, when we go out to drink, we'll drink low proof, low ABV alcohol by volume cocktails. And there's also a trend growing right now where there's no ABV or no proof or non-alcoholic NAs, non-alcoholic drinks. Those are a lot of tools that we use to like just to check on people and control the experience.
And the experience in the crowd too, exactly. And other patrons.
Yeah. Actually, because we're not just worried about the one person, we're worried about the entire bar.
Exactly. So. Right. One person being horribly overserved can ruin the experience for everybody in the bar too. So you have to not think about it in terms of just one person to one person to one person. You're thinking about it as are all of your guests having a good time. And the no proof, non-alcoholic, spirit free, whatever you want to call it, cocktail. That can be a great tool in your arsenal for this. It's a great way to help maybe control the flow of alcohol going over while still providing somebody with a really, really good and thoughtfully made product.
Right.
Too. And not everybody drinks. Not everybody wants to drink, but that doesn't mean that they can't go out to a cocktail bar and still have something great.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So how do you actually? So when I was doing research for this particular topic, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of those who have been looking into alcohol-related intentional, unintentional injury was the inability for bartenders to be able to stop serving or to communicate that they are going to be stopping service. Tell me about that and your personal experiences. What's it been like?
It's not easy. I mean, you're telling somebody sometimes. I mean, you try to avoid like any type of embarrassment. I mean, you can. Some people use humor, like, I'm sorry, but that was probably your last drink, like you just like try to lighten it up a little bit and like, let's get some food in you. You have a glass of water,
right.
Or sometimes you can maybe pull them aside individually to avoid embarrassment from their friends. Cause like, that's where you run into conflict the most is when you like embarrass the guest. So we just try to find like some people have like, everyone has their own different approach. I kill people with kindness. I'm so nice that they can't be mad at me.
You are so nice.
That's my approach.
I can definitely confirm that.
Pauly, one of the other bartenders at Allegory, he kills people with comedy. So shouldn't probably use the phrase "kill people." Sorry,
but yeah, fatalities here, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, I mean everyone has their own approach and everyone has their own strategy, and you have to find what works for your own personality because there's no one size fits all.
It's an art.
Yeah.
Jackson?
It's never a comfortable experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you are looking, your loyal guests in the eye saying, hey, I am not going to give you any more.
Right.
Never comfortable. People will frequently get pretty upset. You understand why they're getting upset. But as you are, to return to this party analogy, you are the host of the party. It's up to you to be the responsible one. And it's up to you to essentially be the authority figure. So there's going to be a lot of pushback, but when somebody has been overserved or it's time for somebody to stop drinking, it's time to stop.
Right.
There's not really any gray area about that. It's you're cut off. I'm sorry, but that's just what it is.
Okay, so tell me some stories.
Oh, I have a good one.
We don't have to use names. We're not going to identify. Just a couple weeks ago,
I had two ladies.
Deke and I are behind the bar together with this one.
I had two ladies sitting at my bar, and they had obviously like clearly been drinking before that. So the one lady ordered we call it omakase cocktail, where they allow us to create a cocktail for them based on their personal preferences. I knew they were pretty drunk, pretty inebriated at that point, so I made like a Collins riff where I split the gin with sherry. Sherry's low alcohol content, so I low proofed it, but like it wasn't being deceitful because there was still the gin in there. It wasn't like dropping the proof super low. They kept grabbing stuff off my bar, like grabbing tools and like grabbing my shakers. And
listeners, that is unacceptable behavior
not
at a
do
bar.
that.
Please don't do that.
This is our office. Please don't mess with our tools.
We don't come to your desk and rearrange
Do not take your
everything.
stapler.
Yeah.
Do not touch the cherry.
Exactly.
The
And the final, and I told them a couple times, like, hey, please just don't touch anything on the bar. I wanted them to, have fun, because like it's okay to be goofy in a bar, but like once you start, really impeding my ability to do my job, then it becomes a problem. And the final straw was she grabbed a drink I was making for another guest.
Oh shit!
And I was not going to serve her again after the drink she was drinking. So I'm like, okay, well, this is the line. So I took it back from her. I'm like, I really appreciate y'all. I really do. We've had this conversation a couple times now. Like, we're just gonna stick with water from here on out. Like, please hang out at the bar and like enjoy our bar. But like, I'm just not gonna serve you a drink again.
Right.
And they were just like not that happy about it.
Right.
And they kind of like molded over, all blah, 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 had this little chat with themselves. And then they stood up and she looked at me and said, your hair is stupid. And
no, she didn't.
yeah, I know.
It is unacceptable.
I was shocked to my core. No, it was funny. And I was just like, thank you. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Have a wonderful evening.
I was standing 3 feet from Deke the whole time. He was polite as can be throughout the entire experience, but she clearly thought that his hair looked stupid and felt that it was important that he know in that moment.
Because that's relevant.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely.
That was going to change his mind and be like, oh, you know what? I was wrong. I actually will serve you.
I lay in my bed at night staring at my roof, thinking about that comment and wondering to myself, is my hair actually stupid?
Well, to give her credit, we are talking about it weeks later.
yeah, exactly.
to a pretty wide audience.
She won.
I think your hair looks nice for what it's worth.
Thanks, buddy.
No, your hair looks awesome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you've experienced in terms of the actual risk correlation here between alcohol consumption and related injuries, right? So this is like an annoying customer who's drank too much. Where has it gone to in your experiences to the point of hurting a patron, hurting themselves or hurting others around them? And that can be physical injury, that can be, and you probably don't know what happens after you leave the bar, right? But sometimes don't they?
Well, sometimes you want to
come back and investigate the beginning of how some incidents started, and maybe it started at your bar.
I mean, if I have the opportunity, I'll call somebody an Uber. Get them a lift, try to figure out where they live, or if they're with somebody, make sure they're in good hands. We don't want people stumbling out of our bar in dangerous states. So we try to mitigate that damage as much as possible, mitigate the danger, I should say.
That's also one of the nice parts about our bar being in a hotel is if all their options fail, we are able to maybe work with the front desk. Like, hey, maybe we can get them a room. Yeah,
like this person clearly could potentially hurt themselves. Like, can't we just get them a room?
Okay, so I want to mention a couple of stats that I found, which were really surprising, right? So in the United States, this was research coming out of the British Medical Journal, and it showed this was some research done in 2015, and we'll make sure this is in the show notes as well, so listeners can look this up. And I'm just going to give a couple, but globally this is an issue, right? Yeah. This isn't unique to the United States or the UK or even developed countries. This is all over. But in the USA in 2015, 12% of patrons exiting nightclubs reported physical or sexual aggression.
Yeah.
It's worse in Brazil, and that involves a lot of driving-related incidents. And then the UK, over 80% of violence and pedestrian fatalities on weekend nights were related to alcohol. Denmark, we think about like Scandinavian countries as being above the board and just doing everything right, but they have 58% of door supervisors and 17% of bar servers have reported being physically assaulted at work.
Yeah.
So those are a couple examples that I just wanted to throw out there because does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, I do believe that certain people are like targeted more than others. Like I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'3". So usually I'm not the like classic case for, somebody being targeted for like sexual assault, but it happens to me, people grab me, I used to work security front door.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
Wait, this is so fascinating. Women, it's not just us.
Oh yeah.
It's not just like 5'5" and under.
Yeah. I mean, granted, like I said, I don't want to somehow, make this like
make light of
of like and any other people, but like it happens to me. It also happens, I've worked with plenty of women that this happens to, and we just try to create a space where like they feel comfortable enough that we all have each other's back,
right.
that we'll all stand up for each other in the face of that type of situation. So if I have a server who doesn't feel comfortable, I have to, and she's not doing anything about it, I have to be assertive and like go in and just like talk to the guests and be like, listen, in our bar, we don't allow people to touch our bartenders and servers. This is just like a formal warning. If it happens again, then we're going to kick you out.
Okay.
We have to be like stern.
That team mentality going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and if it's aggressive, like from the get go, then they're gone. They have to go.
That's the only way it works.
Yeah.
That team mentality that Deke was talking about, that's so important. I mean, Deke and I are both, larger guys. So these are things that, people are aggressive with us in bars somewhat less too. But, we've both worked with, all manner of people. And a lot of times it can be, or really on, even if you're a bartender or if you're in a managerial capacity, it's very much up to you to ensure the safety of your employees. So if somebody is making them feel uncomfortable, somebody is being aggressive with them, it's your responsibility to intervene. That can be as simple as, hey, like, why don't you take a different table? I'll take this table right now, or something like that. Or it can be, a more formal, much more stern warning, or just call security and get them out right now. Yeah,
it depends on the level. If it's like a playful like pat on the shoulder,
right?
That seems, non-threatening. That's still unacceptable.
Yeah.
But like,
that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, he's just like, don't ever touch the bartender service.
Yeah, keep your hands to yourself.
Not a lot of people know this, but I was a bartender for a couple years.
All
yeah.
right.
When I had to pay my way through my PhD a little bit when I was in the UK. And it really sucks being a bartender in the UK because nobody tips. The UK generally, nobody tips.
Yeah.
So I would just make the easy drinks for the guys because they all ordered a Jai and Coke. And then the girls, do you like my British accent? That was a British accent. Okay. And then the girls would get like French martinis and like cosmopolitans, and I would always mess that up. But it worked out because it was like female bartenders, male bartenders, and we would just like serve the opposite sex. So it worked out. But there was an incident. There was a few incidents where the patrons were inappropriate. And if it wasn't for the team and the staff and the security there that not only handled the situation in that moment, but also walked me home at the end of the night, that could have been a problem. Yeah. So it's good to see that is something that is obviously something that is happening, being replicated and also being scaled, right? These are best practices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Best practices should be industry standard across the board.
Right.
I mean,
is there an industry standard on this?
We're moving in that direction. Like we're a small team, so we get to implement our like philosophy and vision fairly easily, and everyone's bought into our system. So it's really easy for us to have like a really strong system in place. I think it's slowly starting to permeate out into like sports bars, clubs, those types of places. I want to say that it's getting a bit better. At least we're creating more awareness at the very least. I don't know if it's getting any better, but at the very least, like there's more programs now, like, Safe Bar. It's like a program that they'll come in and teach your staff how to handle these types of situations. So I think the access to information is greater than it's ever been.
There's certainly more resources available to a team, a manager, to an owner than there ever have been.
Yeah.
So
I know
it definitely positive signs.
Like in the cocktail world, which we're focused, like everyone that is very aware of these types of things. And it seems like that everyone in the cocktail world is like very much on board with these ideas. Like I said, I don't know how it permeates into like the other bar cultures, but yeah, I like to think it's getting maybe a bit better.
So what do you think about the bigger issues that we started this conversation off with? And what can you do at the kind of individual bar level versus what do you think we could do at a city level, state level even, to kind of reduce that relationship between alcohol consumption and injury, right? So do we increase the drinking age? Is that an idea that could actually work? Because the number one risk factor, right, leading to death and injury in 15 to 24-year-olds is still alcohol.
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody rational might say, and obviously we know better, it's not necessarily going to work. Why don't we just increase the drinking age? Why don't we make alcohol more expensive? What are some ideas that you guys have? Have you thought about it?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just on that note, I mean, I abused alcohol at a massive level underage, starting at like the age of 16.
We're laughing, but it's not funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, I was heavy binge drinking in high school and college before I was 21. So I don't know if increasing that's anecdotal, but I don't know if increasing the drinking age would be helpful. I actually am of the mindset that if you somehow destigmatize it, decrease the drinking age, and then destigmatize it. Don't make it this forbidden fruit. Have those conversations. Be able to talk about it. Maybe have a glass of wine when you're 11 or 12, and obviously don't abuse alcohol.
So European right now. I can't.
But I mean, just talk about it, and that way when they get to high school or college, you don't just fly off the rails and just get blackout.
Right.
Because I mean, that's what a lot of people did in college. I mean, that first couple weeks of college, when kids get out from underneath their parental supervision, like so many kids end up at the hospital because they just don't know how to control it, but they're going to do it because there's no control now.
Okay, so on the record, do not increase the drinking age.
I mean, I don't think that would make a significant impact. I actually think that might hinder the situation further.
I'm definitely inclined to agree with you on that increasing the drinking age. All you're doing is creating a larger number of people who don't have the opportunity to drink in safe environments.
Right.
Yeah, drinking in safe environments. Having mentors in the having your parent being a mentor for as far as drinking habits are concerned.
Right.
Maybe just having
practice.
Yeah, having that glass of wine, for dinner, and not just drinking an entire 2 bottles.
Right. And to circle back to what you were saying about being very, very European right now, in France, people learn how to drink before they learn how to drive.
Right.
So I think that's a very, very healthy practice.
So specifically, though, in the situations that you find yourself on most evenings as you work in Allegory, how do you make it a safer environment? Because it's crowded. There's sometimes additional lights and all kinds of special effects that can go on. Maybe not in Allegory, but generally in nightlife scenes.
Yeah.
So the combination of that and then also low lighting, are these things you think about? How do you create an environment that's a little bit healthier and safer for patrons?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge concern because, I mean, doesn't matter how many staff you have on. If you're way over capacity and people are packed in there, you have no idea what's happening in the middle, it's on a dance floor.
Right.
You can have all the staff in the world, but you're not gonna be able to spot somebody getting, made uncomfortable or assaulted or something on a packed dance floor. So I think moderating how many people are in your space, having adequate staff, not creating those blind spots, being conscious. When you're building out a bar, being conscious of the space and the safety that entails, in our bar. And if you go and stand in any corner, you can see any corner of the bar. It's a big open square. Obviously, it's dim lit, but you can, once your eyes adjust, you can see everything that's happening. So you just got to stay as diligent as possible. You got to constantly train your team up. Like I said, bring Safe Bar in and have them train your team. Talk about it in pre-shift, talk about strategies, just do all these little things. But, in those bigger environments, it's difficult. I think regulating the door and making sure not too many people come in, or, talking to your bartenders about over serving, all those things have to coincide to create a healthy,
it's actually interesting
safe
to
experience.
learn that's not necessarily mandated.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of places that probably don't even talk about it.
It really varies, yeah.
Yep.
Everybody has a capacity that's given to them. It's part of fire code. A lot of people ignore it too, all over the world. A big part of making sure that you have a safe environment is making sure that you are adhering to that capacity, even if you could make a little bit more money by packing it in.
Right.
So
that's what I wonder.
Decision.
Do you think certain bartenders are oh, well, even though this person is incapacitated, one more drink means more cash for us this evening?
Oh,
Does that happen pretty frequently?
Absolutely. There are plenty of bad actors in our.
Right.
I mean, I've heard horror stories from people with other bartenders.
Have to bring you back for another session then.
Oh
we
my
didn't
God.
even get into some of these stories.
Oh man, and I take my job so seriously that when I hear those stories, I get almost physically ill. So I'm how could you do that? Their safety is in your hands. Why would you ever do that to somebody? There's bartenders that will take advantage of people.
Right.
And their drunkenness. So that's something that we always have to be on the lookout for.
So I love that you said that, because every single profession, career, whatever it is, whatever your craft is, has an oath of conduct.
Mm-hmm.
As scientists, it's to seek out the truth. Journalists, very similarly. Doctors, it's do no harm.
Yep.
So what is it, as bartenders and managers, what is your kind of oath to your profession and to your customer?
That's a good question.
What does our oath look like? I mean,
it might vary.
Well, I mean, the idea is drinking better while and focusing on, being healthy. Like there's such a big push in our community right now to what does it look like to drink and also be healthy? Like from a work-life balance standpoint, from a, consumption standpoint, what does that look like? Because we want people to enjoy alcohol, but we're also acutely aware of the fact that our product is very harmful. I mean, it's a very serious issue. So I don't think we have an oath or anything, but I think everyone's just so, at least people are moving in the direction to being a lot more hyper conscious about consuming safely in the healthiest way possible. And so it's, like I said, we touched on that, but no non-alcoholics, low alcohol by volume cocktails, using pushing these trends forward so that we move into a environment where, people are drinking maybe a little bit less, drinking healthier, being safer.
That's good. I like that a lot. Yeah. Jackson, last words.
To Deke's point, is to make it count. A lot of the stuff that goes in that cocktail is not very good for you, but you're in an environment where you're having a lot of fun. Hopefully you're in an environment where you feel like you are safe, that you like to come back, and you're drinking a well-curated drink that's in front of you. So make it the best drink possible. Make the experience as good and as safe as you can. Make it count.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. I love that. I think our listeners probably got a lot out of that. They know not to drink and drive after this. We hope you're enjoying.
No.
Never.
Hey, Uber and Lyft. Come on.
Don't have that Lindsay Lohan moment. You do not need to drive yourself. Also, you are unlikely listening to this from LA. Or, likely maybe you are. Regardless of where you are, there is ways to get home. So please always exhibit responsible behavior and remember that it is supposed to be a good experience for all, those who are serving you, you as a patron, and those around you. That's a wrap for today. Have ideas for the show? Tweet us at Dr. Taylor Wallace. That's DrTaylorWallace, and me at Shwetac. That is SWETAC. Thank you for tuning in to Risky Behavior.